I picked Pine Ridge National Park because it was supposed to be safe, well-trafficked enough that you wouldn't get mauled by a bear, but remote enough to actually breathe. The first night was perfect: clear skies, a crackling fire, and that heavy silence you only get when you're miles from the nearest road. I fell asleep thinking this was exactly what I needed. Then I woke up to the rocks. A neat little stack of them, about the size of my fist, placed just a foot from my tent door. Weird, but I shrugged it off. Maybe a raccoon knocked something over, or the wind did it. Except there was no wind, and the rocks weren't scattered. They were stacked like some kid's idea of caring. I kicked them apart before packing up, but the whole time, my neck itched like I was being watched. The second night, the rocks were back. Bigger this time. A pyramid of fist-sized stones right where I'd scattered the others. My stomach dropped. No animal does that. I spun around, scanning the trees, but the woods were dead silent. No birds, no squirrels, just this thick, waiting quiet. I filmed the rocks with my phone, like proof I wasn't losing it, then hiked to the ranger station. But when I got there, the door was padlocked, the sun-bleached sign, reading closed for season, tilted on the steps. That's when I heard it, a click from the tree line, like two stones being knocked together. I booked it back to camp, my pulse in my throat. By the time I got there, the rock pile was gone. In its place, a single bone-white pebble balanced on top of my cooler. That third night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against a tree, knife in one hand and flashlight in the other, scanning the darkness for movement. Around 2 a.m., the noises started, soft at first, just the rustle of leaves. Then came the click-click of rocks again, this time in a slow, deliberate rhythm from different directions. My breath hitched when I realized it wasn't random. It was mimicking the cadence of my voice from earlier, when I'd been muttering to myself about gathering firewood. "No way in hell," I whispered. The knocking stopped. Then, from somewhere above me in the branches, something whispered back, "Way in hell." I didn't wait. I bolted into my tent and zipped it shut, but the whispers kept going, now in my voice, repeating every word I'd said that day like some twisted recording. WY morning, I was done. I packed in a frenzy, my hands shaking so bad I could barely roll my sleeping bag. The trail out was simple, a straight 3-mile shot to the parking lot. But when I got to the fork in the path, my stomach dropped. The signpost was gone. In its place, another goddamn rock pile, taller than the others, with my own pocket knife stabbed into the top like some kind of trophy. The trees here were dense, the underbrush thick with thorns, but I could still see the main trail ahead, until I noticed the ropes. Thin, almost invisible lines crisscrossing the path, tied knee-high between the trees. Tripwires. I backed up, chest heaving, and that's when I saw them. Dozens of rock piles half hidden in the foliage, marking the edges of some invisible perimeter, like I was in a cage. And whatever was in here with me, it didn't want me leaving, that I didn't want to go deeper into the woods, but the ropes left me no choice. I pushed through the underbrush, branches clawing at my arms, until I stumbled into a clearing that made my blood freeze. Another campsite, or what was left of one. A collapsed tent, bleached by the sun, with a moldy sleeping bag spilling out like guts. Empty cans of food, rusted shut. And everywhere, rocks, stacked in pyramids, arranged in spirals. Some even balanced in impossible towers that defied gravity. My flashlight beam caught something metallic, a phone half buried in the dirt. I wiped the screen clean, praying for a signal, but it was dead. Then I noticed the photos in the gallery. Dozens of them, all showing the same thing. Close-ups of rock piles, blurred shots of the trees at night, and one final image that made my hands shake, a shadowy figure standing just outside the tent flap, its arms too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The timestamp was from 3 years ago. The whispers came back after dark. This time, they didn't bother mimicking me. They just talked in voices that didn't match. A child giggling, a man sobbing, a woman humming a lullaby. I clutched my knife, sweat dripping down my back, when I heard the worst sound yet. Footsteps, not the careful tread of an animal, but something dragging its feet like it didn't need to hide anymore. Then the rocks started falling, one by one. The towers around my tent collapsed, each clack louder than the last, until the only sound was my own choked breathing. That's when I saw it, a pale hand, too thin, fingers knotted like roots, sliding something under my tent flap. A Polaroid. In it, I was asleep. And behind me, the shadow figure from the dead phone's photo crouched, its face pressed against my ear like it was whispering secrets to my dreams. At BY dawn, my camp was gone. Not ransacked, replaced. My tent stood exactly where I'd pitched it, but everything inside had vanished. No sleeping bag, No backpack, not even the damn lighter from my pocket. Just more rocks, arranged in a perfect circle on the tent floor like some kind of sick altar. My hand shook as I grabbed one, cold and smooth, almost polished, and that's when I noticed the marks. Tiny grooves carved into each stone, forming symbols I didn't recognize. Something between a child's scribble and ritual scarring. I threw them aside and bolted outside, only to freeze. The clearing had changed overnight. Dozens of new rock piles dotted the grass, each one taller than the last, forming a spiraling path leading deeper into the trees. And at the center of it all, a single word had been scratched into the dirt: run. I didn't run. I followed the spiral. Maybe it was panic, maybe some screwed up curiosity, but I needed to see where it led. The trees grew thicker, their branches twisted into archways, like the forest itself was reshaping to guide me. Then I smelled it rot. Not animal decay, but something sweet and cloying, the stench of meat left out too long. The spiral ended at a sinkhole, its edges lined with jagged stones. And inside it, them. Bones half buried in the mud, still wrapped in scraps of hiking gear. A moldy jacket here, a rustic canteen there. One skull still had a GoPro strapped to it, its red light long dead. I vomited into the bushes, my mind screaming that this wasn't real, it couldn't be, until I saw the latest edition. A fresh corpse, barely decomposed, its hands clutched around a stack of rocks. And tucked between its fingers, a note scrawled on damp paper. It wants you to build too. The whispers started again before I could move. This time, they weren't just in the trees, they were inside my head, hissing like static. You're almost done, they crooned. My vision blurred, and suddenly I was on my knees, stacking rocks without remembering when I'd started. My hands moved on their own, arranging them into a tower, each stone clicking in a place like it was meant to be there. The more I built, the louder the whispers grew, until they weren't words anymore, but a chorus of screams. Everyone who'd ever been here, everyone who'd ever stacked a single stone. I tried to stop, but my fingers kept moving, numb and bloodied. The tower grew taller. The air got colder. And then, from a sinkhole, something scratched. I don't know how I got out. 1 second, I was clawing in my own hands to stop building. The next, I was sprinting through the woods, branches whipping my face raw. I didn't look back. Not when I heard the rocks clattering behind me. Not when the whispers turned to wails. I made it to the ranger station by sheer luck, my voice gone from screaming. They found me covered in mud, my nails torn down to the quick, babbling about the stones. The rangers exchanged looks. They'd heard this before. Now, months later, I wake up every night to the sound of clicking. And on my windowsill, no matter how many times I sweep them away, there's always a single pebble waiting, balanced perfectly, like an invitation. My name's Jake, and this happened last summer when me and 3 of my closest friends, Derek, Lisa, and Marco, decided to go off-grid for a week in Black Pine National Park. We weren't rookies. We'd camped together since college, but this time we wanted something real. No trails, no rangers, just raw wilderness. The first day was perfect. Crisp air, untouched forest, that feeling of being completely disconnected from the world. We set up camp near a creek, laughing about dumb ghost stories, totally unaware of how wrong things were about to get. By nightfall, though, the woods got quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind where even the crickets stopped chirping like something was holding its breath. The first weird thing happened around 2 a.m. I woke up to this sound, like someone dragging their fingers through wet leaves, slow and deliberate. At first, I thought it was an animal, but then I heard it stop right outside my tent. My skin prickled. I held my breath, listening, until Derek's voice cut through the dark. Yo, you guys hear that? We all unzipped our tents, flashlights sweeping the trees. Nothing, just shadows swallowing the beams. Lisa joked about deer, but her voice was shaky. We went back to bed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was out there wasn't deer. And when we woke up, Marco's backpack was gone. Not stolen, placed neatly in the center of the campsite. Zipped open like someone had gone through ITWY the second night. The woods didn't just feel quiet, they felt wrong. Like the trees were leaning in too close, watching us. Derek, always the skeptic, tried to brush it off, but even he kept glancing over his shoulder. We built a fire bigger than usual, not talking much, just listening. That's when Lisa whispered, "Did you see that?" Her flashlight trembled as she pointed past the firelight. Something moved between the trees, too tall to be a person, but too deliberate to be an animal. It didn't run. It just stepped back into the dark. We all saw it. No one admitted it. We locked eyes, and for the first time, I realized we were all thinking the same thing. We shouldn't be here. The next morning, Marco was gone. Went for a walk gone. His tent was still zipped shut from the inside, his sleeping bag rumpled like he just rolled out of it. But his boots were still there. His phone, his knife. No one just leaves barefoot into the wilderness. We shouted his name until our throats burned, but the forest ate every echo. That's when Derek found the marks. 3 deep scratches on a tree near Marco's tent, fresh sap oozing down the bark. Too straight to be claws. Too precise. Lisa started crying. I pulled out my phone. No signal, but I snapped a photo of the scratches anyway. Later, I'd wish I hadn't. We should have left right then. Packed up and bolted for the trailhead. But Derek refused to abandon Marco. He's our friend, he kept saying, jaw clenched like he was daring the forest to argue. So we searched wider, shouting until our voices cracked, but the trees just threw our words back at us, hollow and mocking. Then Lisa froze, her face white as bone. She was staring at the ground near the creek, a single footprint pressed deep into the mud. Too big to be Marco's, too human. But the toes, they looked stretched like whatever made it had claws instead of nails. My stomach dropped. That's when I noticed the silence again. No birds, no wind, just us breathing too fast. Nightfall came too soon. We barricaded ourselves in Derek's tent, too freaked to split up. Lisa clutched her pocket knife like a holy relic, while Derek muttered about rational explanations under his breath, like he was trying to convince himself. Then the noises started, knocks on tree trunks, one after another, moving in a slow circle around camp. Tap, 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 like something was counting down. My hand shook so bad I could barely hold my flashlight. Then, worst of all, we heard Marco's voice. Distant but unmistakable. Guys, help me. It came from the woods, but it sounded wrong, like he was speaking through water. Derek lunged for the tent zipper, but Lisa grabbed his arm. That's not him, she whispered. And deep down, I knew she was right that we didn't sleep that night. Not a single wink. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of branches sent my heart into my throat. Around 3 a.m., the knocking stopped, and for a second, I let myself hope it was over. Then something breathed outside the tent, this wet, guttural sound like lungs full of mud. I could smell it too, this rotting sweetness like spoiled fruit and old meat. Lisa clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. Derek had his hunting knife out, but his hands were shaking so bad the blade trembled. Then the tent fabric bulged inward like something was pressing against it, testing the material. I swear to God, I saw fingers too long, drag slowly down the nylon before it pulled away. Dawn didn't bring relief. It brought fog, thick and soupy, clinging to the trees like cobwebs. We packed up in record time, no discussion needed. Marco's tent was still there, untouched. None of us even looked at it. We just ran, crashing through brush, following the creek downstream like it was a lifeline. That's when we found the first sign of other people. A shredded backpack, half buried in the mud. Inside was a waterlogged park map from 2007 and a rusted pocket knife with initials we didn't recognize. Lisa started hyperventilating. We're not the first, she kept saying. We're not the first. Derek snapped at her to shut up, but his voice cracked. He knew it too. Whatever took Marco had been here before, and it was still with us. The fog got thicker as we pushed forward until we could barely see 5 feet ahead. Every shadow looked like it was moving. Every branch that brushed my shoulder made me flinch. Then Derek stopped dead in his tracks. Do you hear that? He whispered. At first, there was nothing. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, keeping perfect pace with us just out of sight. My blood turned to ice. Lisa grabbed my arm, so tight her nails dug into my skin. We need to split up, Derek suddenly said, his voice too calm. Cover more ground. I knew it was a terrible idea, but before I could argue, he veered off into the trees, disappearing into the mist within seconds. We never saw him again. Lisa and I stuck together after that, too terrified to speak above a whisper. The forest seemed to twist around us. Landmarks we swore we'd passed before, trees with those same 3 claw marks gouged into their trunks. That's when we found the clearing. In the center stood a makeshift altar of stacked rocks, covered in decades of weathered camping gear, water bottles, torn tents, even a pair of cracked glasses. But what made my legs give out were the photos. Dozens of them, nailed to the trees like trophies. Smiling faces of hikers, some faded with age, others disturbingly recent. And in every single one, scratched into the image right over the hikers' throats were those same 3 lines. Lisa let out a choked sob. "We're on the altar now," she said. I didn't understand until I heard the click of a camera behind us. I spun around just in time to see it. A figure so gaunt its ribs showed through its tattered ranger uniform. Its arms stretched unnaturally long. Its face, God, its face was smooth like a mannequin's, except for the mouth, which split open in a grin full of needle-thin teeth. It held an old Polaroid camera, the flash still fading from when it took our picture. Lisa screamed and bolted. I tried to follow, but something grabbed my ankle, a hand, cold and leathery, bursting from the ground itself. I kicked free, stumbling backward into a tree. The last thing I saw before I ran was the figure carefully pinning our fresh photo to a tree, its long fingers etching those 3 marks through our faces. I don't know how I made out alive. I ran until my lungs burned, until branches tore my clothes and face. When I finally collapsed near a trail, a search team found me. They'd been looking for us for 2 days. They never found Lisa, or Derek, or Marco. The rangers said I must have gotten turned around, that there was no altar, no photos. But they wouldn't explain why they stopped searching after just 1 day, or why they exchanged those nervous glances when I described the figure. Now, months later, I keep getting these anonymous envelopes in the mail. No return address. Inside are always Polaroids of Lisa, of Derek, of others I don't recognize. They're always in the woods, always looking terrified, and in each one, fresh claw marks sliced through their throats. The last one came yesterday. It was me, asleep in my bed. 3 lines already scratched across the image. My girlfriend, Jen, and I desperately needed that trip. We've been grinding through 60-hour work weeks in the city, barely seeing each other between takeout dinners and half-asleep conversations. So when we found that secluded camping spot deep in Black Ridge National Forest, no cell service, no trails, just raw wilderness, it felt like a miracle. We pitched our tent near a creek, the kind of place where the only sounds were the wind and your own heartbeat. At first, it was perfect. Jen laughed as I fumbled with the fire starter, and we drank cheap wine straight from the bottle, giddy with the silence. But then, as the sun dipped behind the pines, I noticed something odd, a narrow gap in the trees, too straight to be natural. Like a path someone had tried and failed to hide. I never admitted to Jen, but the second I saw that path, my neck prickled. It wasn't just the way the branches looked cut, it was the silence. No birds, no rustling, just this heavy, waiting stillness. Jen, ever the adventurer, grabbed my arm. "Let's check it out before dark," she whispered, like we were kids sneaking into a haunted house. The deeper we went, the colder the air got, until we stumbled into a clearing. What was left of a campsite sat rotting there. A collapsed tent, a rusted kettle, and this stuck with me, a single hiking boot, laces still tied. Jen joked about bear attacks, but my gut twisted. That boot didn't look abandoned. It looked placed, like a warning. We booked it back to our camp, laughing too loud to shake off the dread. But when we got there, my backpack wasn't where I'd left it. And that's when I knew we weren't alone. That first night, I barely slept. Every snap of a twig had me gripping my pocket knife, straining to hear footsteps over Jen's steady breathing. At dawn, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Maybe the wind had knocked my bag over, or a raccoon rummaged through her stuff. But then Jen frowned at the cooler. Didn't we pack 2 granola bars? I shrugged it off, but by lunch, my own paranoia kicked in. My lighter was gone. Not misplaced, gone. The kind you keep zipped in a specific pocket, the one you never lose. Jen teased me for being forgetful, but her smile faltered when she saw my face. That's when I noticed the footprints. Not ours, too big, with deep treads like work boots. They circled our tent, then vanished into the trees like whoever made them had just stopped up by day 3. Jen stopped laughing. We'd both wake up to sounds, not animal sounds, but deliberate ones. A cough, the crunch of gravel underweight. Once, at 3 a.m., something scraped against our tent's rainfly, slow and taunting. I burst outside with my flashlight, heart slamming, but there was nothing, just a forest watching. Jen wanted to leave, but our car was a 6-mile hike away, and the thought of trekking out there in the dark. No, we'd wait for sunrise. That afternoon, gathering firewood, I spotted a glint in the oak above me. A tiny black lens, no bigger than a dime, wedged between the branches. My blood turned to ice. I didn't point out to Jen. Instead, I pretended to tie my shoe, scanning the trees. That's when I saw another. And another. All trained on our tent that I didn't tell Jen about the cameras. Not at first. Instead, I muttered something about checking the map and drag her away from camp, my voice too steady to be believable. The second we were out of earshot, I grabbed her shoulders. We need to go. Now. Her face went pale when I showed her the photos on my phone, close-ups of the lenses hidden in the bark. Who the hell? She started, but I cut her off. Doesn't matter. Pack. Fast. Back at camp, we threw gear into our bags like the trees themselves were breathing down our necks. That's when I saw it. Jen's pink water bottle, the one she'd left by the fire pit, was now perched on a rock inside our tent. The message was clear. You're not leaving till we ran anyway. No plan, just straight through the underbrush, branches whipping at our arms. Jen's breath came in sobs, but neither of us dared to stop, until the click froze us mid-step. A tripwire, thin, almost invisible, strung ankle-high across the path. My stomach dropped. This wasn't some creep with a camera anymore. This was planned, calculated. Jen's hand crushed mine as we stared at the wire, tracing it to a sapling where a cheap digital recorder dangled, blinking red. I knew we should have bolted, but some sick curiosity made me press play. A statusy voice rasped. You shouldn't have come back. Yen screamed, because we had come back to the exact spot where we'd found that rotting boot 2 days before. The voice on the recorder didn't sound human. Not quite. It was like someone had stitched together words from different recordings, each syllable slightly off in pitch or tone. You shouldn't have come back. Jen's whole body shook against me, her nails digging into my arm. I want to tell her it was a sick joke, some hunter's idea of fun. But then the recorder clicked again. This time it was our voices. A garbled playback of us laughing by the fire last night, spliced with static and, God, whispering underneath. They're listening. The whisper said, clear as ice. Jenes Brett hitched. That's not us, she choked out. Because it wasn't. The voices on the tape were imitating us, syllable for syllable, like something had learned how we spoke, that we didn't sleep that night. We sat back to back in the tent, my knife in one hand, Jen's pepper spray in the other. Every rustle outside made my muscles lock. Around 2 a.m., Jen jerked upright. Do you hear that? At first, nothing. Then, faint, rhythmic. Knocking. Not on the tent. On the trees. One tap to our left, then two to the right like a signal. My throat closed when the knocks started mimicking our conversation from earlier. We need to go. Now. Talp, talp, talp. Doesn't matter. Pack. Fast. Talp, talp. Yen mufflet a soap. Whoever was out, there wasn't just watching. They were learning. And they wanted us to know, at T.BY dawn, the forest had gone dead silent again. No birds, no wind, just this thick, suffocating quiet. We packed in frantic silence, but when I unzipped the tent, something slid inside. A Polaroid, freshly developed, still sticky. Jen made a sound like a wounded animal. It was a photo of us, taken through the tent flaps last night. We were sleeping, or at least, we thought we were. The worst part? The timestamp in the corner. 3 Uhr 17 nachts. The exact time Jen had woken me up whispering, there's someone outside. But in the photo, my eyes were wide open, staring straight at the camera. I don't remember that. Jen's voice was barely audible. That's not you. We ran like hell, crashing through branches, not caring about noise anymore. The cameras were everywhere now, tucked in logs, hanging from fishing line, even buried in the dirt with just the lens peeking out. Then Jen froze. Oh my God. Ahead, strung between two pines, was a clothesline, and clipped to it, dozens of Polaroids. All of us. Us setting up camp. Us arguing over the map. Me kneeling by the creek, completely alone, except in the photo, a shadowy figure stood right behind me, its hand on my shoulder. Jen vomited into the bushes. That's when I noticed the newest photo, still blank, clipped to the end of the line. A space waiting for us. The recorder voice crackled to life again, this time from nowhere and everywhere at once. A speaker hidden in the trees. Stay. Jen screamed back. Who are you? The response wasn't a voice. It was laughter. Our laughter played back in a warped, endless loop. I grabbed Jen and ran toward the creek, the only landmark I knew led back to the trailhead. But the water was wrong. Cloudy. Red-tinted. Floating in the shallows was Jen's missing granola bar wrapper. And beside it, my lighter. The one I'd lost. The message was undeniable. You were never in control, that we made it to the car by sheer luck. Keys fumbling, engine roaring to life. Jin cried the whole drive out. I kept checking the rear view, expecting headlights, but there was nothing. Just a forest swallowing itself behind us. Back in the city, we filed a report, but the rangers found no cameras, no recorder, no clothesline. Just an empty clearing and our own footprints. They said we'd imagined it. Stress, isolation, whatever. But last night, Jin texted me a photo. Her apartment window, and taped to the glass. A Polaroid of us in the car driving away. The timestamp, exactly 5 minutes after we'd left.